Hey JP,
What's up, Amanda? How are you?
not not too much. It's a beautiful day out. Um, we're going to talk about Salesforce and HubSpot today, though, and I'm really excited because you are one of the few people that I kind of work with that has experience using both platforms, and I do too. But I'm just really excited to chat with you about it. So tell us a little bit about your role and your experience.
Well, I'm also very excited to nerd out with you on it, and always excited to talk to you. But my experience, my background, so I have been at HubSpot for almost 6 years, about 5.5 right now, rounding up. In the past, I've used both systems, obviously working at HubSpot. HubSpot did use Salesforce for a small amount of time when I first joined HubSpot. And prior to that, I had been using Salesforce at other roles as an individual contributor. So it's definitely a very interesting topic, and they both are really good fits for different types of businesses. But I'm really excited to dig into sort of a comparison of them today.
Absolutely. And when we think about them as like a sales platform, there are certainly things that they have in common that overlap. What would you say are some of the most common things or some of the most standout things or functions and abilities between the two systems that are kind of similar?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I think first thing I usually like to address is the misconception sometimes people have over like comparing the HubSpot CRM and its breadth of tools like the Marketing Hub to Salesforce, because Salesforce in general, without Pardot, doesn't do a lot of what HubSpot
Right.
does, which is a lot of the marketing automation, a lot of the things you typically think of when it comes to HubSpot. As far as a general CRM, HubSpot they're both very well designed systems that are great for managing your contacts, your sales pipelines, being able to save and keep all the information you might need about a individual, an organization, and all the intricacies in between that and their
Mm-hmm.
relationships. That's the primary function, like comparing apples to apples, so to speak. With the sales tools, also a lot of similarities in the different sequencing, a lot of the follow-ups, the tasks for like an individual rep, all of those built-in systems to remind you to do certain things, make sure there's follow-up, as well as reporting for yourself and your management and leadership team is all built into both of those systems. I'd say those are probably the biggest similarities between the two.
Yeah, that makes sense. I would agree and feel that same way. But of course, then there are differences between the two platforms. You've already a little bit touched on them, but what would you say are the biggest differences between, what a user can expect in Salesforce versus HubSpot?
Yep. And I think, and you and I have talked about this before, I think the biggest difference is usability for individual contributors. I think
Hmm.
HubSpot is really built for like a do-it-yourself team. It's a lot easier to sort of navigate, to catch onto very quickly. The also probably bigger difference is HubSpot's training and support as compared
Hmm.
to Salesforce. HubSpot has invested a lot of energy and time into our academy, helping people really hit the ground running to learn it, as well as uh, our need to actually do onboarding with us to be able to use it and help us teach you and make sure it's set up, or work with an amazing solutions partner like you guys to help folks set it up the right way. Salesforce obviously has a partnership program as well, but is a lot bigger of a beast, so to speak. It requires a lot more, it does have a lot more customization than HubSpot does. HubSpot is definitely moving in that direction with the introduction of our operations hub and custom objects.
Hmm.
But Salesforce is much more, you can really customize it based on your business. It does require usually having an in-house person dedicated to doing that, which also needs to be thought of when tallying up the cost of each product.
Hmm.
But the biggest differences I'd say is number one, that misconception between like the marketing tools you get on HubSpot and Salesforce. You'd need to add on Pardot if you really wanted to get some of that marketing tools, but also the just ease of use, especially for individual contributors. Both are good at doing reporting. From conversations you and I have had, as well as my own insight, I definitely know managers and leadership. You can do a lot more with the reporting, I'd say, in Salesforce. HubSpot is making strides at their reporting, but definitely you can dig a lot deeper into the data in Salesforce than you can HubSpot. HubSpot, you can have like a data box that sits on top of it that can really help you customize it a little bit more. But I'd say those are the biggest differences: is the marketing tools built into the main HubSpot product, Salesforce needing to put on Pardot on top of that, and just the ease of use between HubSpot as a individual contributor or just a leadership team, and the need for a really dedicated individual to really build out your Salesforce instance for you, and probably more training time that needs to happen for Salesforce.
Absolutely.
Would you agree with that? Yeah.
100%. And I heard an illustration or an example that, like, when I heard it, I was like, yes, I've been waiting for this. That HubSpot to Salesforce is like Mac to PC. You know, HubSpot and Mac, they have a lot of things that you can use right out of the gate, and it's more driven for user functionality and ease of use. But a PC might, at a corporate level, you might be able to have more control over that machine. There may be some more, things that, programs that run a little bit differently with it, but it certainly isn't driven for, ease of use, or honestly, it doesn't have the cool factor that HubSpot and, Macs have versus Salesforce and PC. And I love too that you talked about, and I think, we hear this all the time with HubSpot. HubSpot is creating for the user, and that's the way that HubSpot approaches design and business growth and changes in functionality, whereas Salesforce has continued to acquire a lot of organizations and then kind of like patch them into something that's already existing. So it doesn't necessarily have as easy of a, like the workflows and the way things that are built, it's not as seamless. It's a very powerful tool, and it has some really cool things that it can do, but there are just, some challenges with, connecting everything. And like you mentioned, having a Salesforce champion is usually important for an organization, at least one Salesforce champion within a decent sized organization, to kind of help implement and manage some of those processes, I think.
Yeah, a lot of in a lot of situations too, where I've found myself in conversations with customers and having making that comparison between Salesforce and HubSpot. A lot of, especially in the early years when I was at HubSpot, a lot of the situations where people would sway towards Salesforce was that customization, especially around objects, and being able to build in, all right, hey, I don't want to be just beholden to contacts, companies, deals. What if I'm a school and I have parents or teachers, or I want to have different object types? Salesforce definitely beat HubSpot out on that. In the past, we have made strides at HubSpot to really move in the direction of customization with custom objects, custom properties. So it really is kind of tightening that gap, so to speak, on the customization. But my favorite part about it, which you just mentioned, is really in my opinion, the lot more seamless sort of connection between your entire business can live in one instance in HubSpot, and it seamlessly moves from your marketing team to your sales team to your service team, and all of that information is readily, continuously available on every person's part of the journey there. So you can always easily see, what has this person purchased in the past? Let's get them in a good upsell motion in the post-sale, or how do we make sure there's a quick automation between marketing handoff to sales and vice versa? Yeah. So there's a lot more interconnectivity there that I feel like is just easier to build for someone. But that's my point of view on it for sure.
No, I 100% agree. And when we've talked about it so much, but just the ease of use and how easy it is to build out a product inside of HubSpot, or to build out a report, or to update a sales pipeline, or it can be very user driven. And I think Salesforce has its place when you have maybe a really complex commission structure that's regionalized, or you need to do something that's again at that enterprise level where there's lots of users that are maybe fighting over similar territories, or they have 15 people being commissioned on one sale. Yeah, it is complex. It goes to that custom piece. So absolutely.
Yep.
So I have a couple final questions, and they're pretty straightforward, but HubSpot and Salesforce are going to be good fits for different kinds of organizations. So when would you say that Salesforce would be a really good fit for an organization to implement?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'd say today it gets into, and I might be biased HubSpot wise, but I think it's getting into more of a gray area, because HubSpot is definitely making strides to go after the enterprise market with our new products like Operations Hub. I do still think there's definitely the place and time for Salesforce, and definitely bigger organizations if you have the cash in hand to invest in Salesforce, to dedicate that champion. At a past company I was at, we had, I think it was a team of 6 that they needed to just focus on Salesforce updates. So if you do have that flush cash, you do have a business that has a lot more needs for customization, for a lot more of those like complex situations of making sure we can package up the commission correctly to these 15 different reps in this region and routing that. I think that is a case to be made that Salesforce is a really good fit for that. So definitely larger organizations. Is that to say larger organizations aren't a good fit for HubSpot? No, but I do think the both win in that area. But Salesforce is definitely ahead of us still.
Yeah. Well, then follow-up question: when would HubSpot be a better fit?
I think HubSpot is a great fit if you definitely on the cost effectiveness side. Also, if you are looking to get a team up and running on the platform quickly, we have a lot more training. We have the dedicated onboarding that we all require all customers to take with us, either through a solutions partner or through HubSpot ourselves. With our academy as well, that we've invested a lot of time into, where people can really self-teach and learn the whole system in a very quick manner. I think it's definitely more like the mid-market, getting up there in the enterprise solutions, but it's definitely a more cost-effective. And if you're looking for a solution that a team can really take and run with fairly quickly, as opposed to the larger amount of time it would take to get up to speed on Salesforce, HubSpot is definitely the better option.
Yeah, and I 100% agree. And I even think like from the user or the lead perspective, when they start off as a general lead, moving to an MQL to an SQL, like that transition, you can use a HubSpot tool to completely encapsulate that. Using marketing and sales pro, you can cover all of that without having to add on like a Salesforce, or having to add on some other marketing automation tool. From a user experience side, somebody visiting your website to becoming a customer, that experience is a lot more seamless using the HubSpot tool, I think, than some of the other tools that are out there, just because it can all be housed in one ecosystem, and it's a lot easier. There's more transparency for customer service as well as sales reps, account management, to just have transparency to that customer journey for sure too.
Yep. I would also say probably the area where I'd set a HubSpot a little bit higher, like a good fit wise, is if you I think HubSpot is making a lot more investments in its ability to play well with others, so to speak. So API, we have an open API. Salesforce, I know, does connect with a lot of different systems, but this has been a big focal point for HubSpot. And we really, that would be the other good fit, is if you have another system that you're either married to or it's custom built and you want to connect it to a CRM of some kind. I think you're going to have a lot easier time doing that with HubSpot than you would with a Salesforce.
I can attest to that for sure. It's easier with HubSpot.
The data sync alone.
Yeah. Thank you so much. This was a fun conversation. I am glad that we got to like pair up on our Salesforce HubSpot experience and conversations. Always a pleasure to chat with you.
Always a pleasure. And next week we're talking Star Wars versus Star Trek.
100%.
Bye, Amanda.
Thank you.